Приятно ми е да ви представя Торнтън, директор на Нюйоркската обществена библиотека, която ще сподели с нас много интересна тема – Библиотеката като дигитална ко-лаборатория. Много интересно ми се струва да видим какво се.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to NALIS and to the America for Bulgaria Foundation. It is wonderful to be back in Bulgaria among friends and colleagues and hearing my fellow presenters share their new ideas and information with all of us. And I bring particular greetings from the New York Public Library, which is very proud to have NALIS and a link to the NALIS database as one of the many worldwide databases of information directly from the New York Public Library's own website. So we are connected across the miles. Our very first speaker this morning, Dr. Antonella Fresa, mentioned that digitization is now understood to be an everyday aspect of cultural heritage institutions and their activities. And really, digitization is only the beginning. As Dr. Fresa said, now the focus is very much on the value of reuse, the transformational opportunities that are possible for digitized content and the data about that content to be applied in new ways that can benefit scholarship, education, enterprise, the arts, and also individual curiosity, which is something that in the public library setting we care very much about. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the co-creative role of citizens, not just for adding content to our shared cultural heritage, but also to contributing to technological solutions, to tools and interfaces that can make new kinds of reuse possible. Increasingly, we are collaborating not only with other institutions, but also with our users. And I want to talk about a particular opportunity this morning that begins with this. Today, nearly every urban resident has a connected device in their pocket that allows them to access a wide range of current or real-time information pinpointed to their exact location. Why shouldn't information about a city's past be just as accessible? Why shouldn't a person who's walking the streets of a city like New York or Sofia or Plovdiv be able to discover the presence of historically significant buildings, landmarks, or neighborhoods, to be able to check in to a long ago vanished establishment and meet its ghostly proprietor, and to access images like photographs as well as important texts, news clippings, and stories from the past. This information exists in libraries, universities, and other cultural institutions. And to date, no one has aggregated and organized it in a single place that can be accessed with the ease and convenience that people have come to expect from services like Google Maps, Yelp, or Wikipedia. Because cities are in a constant state of change, reconstructing past versions of the urban landscape has long been the painstaking detective work of scholars, genealogists, librarians, and community historians who are working in libraries and archives. Some communities of scholars have begun to build digital gazetteers, providing historical geo-searching for particular areas of study, such as the ancient Greek and Roman world. And to date, no one has attempted this at an urban scale, with its incredible granularity, lots of different buildings, lots of different streets with names that have changed over time. For the past 5 years, the New York Public Library has been working toward making its collections, including those already digitized, more accessible and more useful in an online environment. And this includes the map collections of the library. The New York Public Library has one of the world's premier map collections in terms of its size, its scope, its unique holdings, and its diversity of use. Established in 1895, the library's map holdings include approximately 500,000 maps representing every corner of the earth at scales from local architectural to global. And with particular strengths in New York City and the surrounding area, these maps have long provided the foundation for deep studies of history and geography that serve a very diverse group of users. This includes geographers, cartographers, archaeologists, historians, ecologists, architects, genealogists, collectors, attorneys, novelists, screenwriters, and many, many others, all of whom are coming to the collections with their own unique perspectives and their own nuanced understanding of space and place together. Over 20,000 maps are already digitally available via the library's digital collections portal, where zoomable images can be seen alongside the library's broader digitization efforts. Here on the screen, you see the link to the digital collections website, and also the other kinds of digital content that's available alongside the map collections. This particular collection displayed here are photographic views from New York City over a 100-year period. As of last year, the library released all of its map metadata for these 20,000 maps, as well as high-resolution images that are now accessible for download free of charge through the library's map portal and licensed under a Creative Commons public domain dedication. This ensures their wide, diverse, and not rights-encumbered uses by broad sectors of the scholarly community as well as the general public. And this gives users new opportunities to publish, to artistically remix, and creatively reuse bodies of scholarly research through these free, digital, open access collections. And this leads to increased relevancy and use in publications and all types of projects. The first step to unlocking the potential of maps is through something called map warping. Warping a map means stretching it so that its points correspond to other known points so that the maps can be layered on top of one another through history. The pixel locations of geographic places on images of old maps are correlated to the comparable locations in latitude and longitude on a virtual map. And once several of these correlations are made, a new warped or geographically normalized map derivative is created. And using numerous warped maps, a researcher can compare multiple representations of known locations over time. The New York Public Library collaborated with an external organization called Topomancy to create this particular map warper. And after maps are warped, their features such as building footprints or parks are traced to create data that is machine readable and thus useful for query, computational analysis, and visualization. And for those of you who are familiar with how digital texts can be made more useful through optical character recognition, this is the similar or analogous process for map data to become much more useful. And any additional information, such as building height or place names are keyed in and then automatically associated with the relevant vector shapes, so the shapes of the buildings. Scholars at this point then have access to not just images of maps, but to the aggregate data that is contained within those maps. And data from the maps scanned by the library may one day be used, for example, to analyze and visualize the expansion and evolution of national transportation infrastructures, or the geographically located data sets of Native American place names, for example. Essentially, scholars can analyze this type of data, which is drawn from multiple sources across time, to confirm, to uphold, or even undercut the established narratives of changing geography throughout history. The data created through map warping and tracing is useful in its own right, but can also be repurposed, aggregated, and integrated, as the New York Public Library does with its current New York City data, into a new type of historical gazetteer. That gazetteer can function as a public-facing spatial and temporal reference work, with each entry containing a place name. That place's longitude and latitude and its time frame. So, for example, knowing whether the map is from the 17th century or the 20th century. And entries can be located then through the map-based interface, where a user zooms to their area of study, explores it, and is returned historical information about their place of interest. Once a feature is located, a single click reveals a detailed place page with its time frame, spatial footprint, an image of the historical source map from which it was traced, and citation links for reference. Newly opened opportunities for serendipitous discovery are a valuable aspect of the gazetteer's functionality, but its true promise is in its potential role as a connector of map and spatial information to non-map digital information about those very same places. And the gazetteer is really the predicate for doing this. It is the means, for example, through which various newspaper articles about a particular place, or photographs, or even theater programs or menus for restaurants can be connected. So to accelerate the promise of using old map data to facilitate historical geographic information retrieval, 2 years ago, the New York Public Library hosted a 2-day hackathon. This was in June 2013, and the goal of the hackathon was to use New York Public Library's historical geodata, the library's gazetteer, which is that historical reference I just mentioned, to organize and present other types of non-map materials by space and time. And this particular hackathon seeded several ideas for new public-facing software that would then leverage New York City's historical GIS data and the infrastructure and database of the gazetteer. Prior to doing the hackathon, the map warper was really being used only by people that we trained. It was available on the library's website, still is today, and there's a tutorial for doing it, but it's a little complicated, and so we have been mostly relying on college and university students to help us warp maps with that publicly available tool. And one of the things that we sought to create through these hackathons was a way for a broader base of citizen interest to be able to take on tasks to help the library make its map data much more useful. And we're talking literally about millions and millions of tasks that would be necessary in order to do that. So they really do need to be much easier than what the map warper brought about. But the hackathons that we offered, starting with this very first one, brought together some of the region's best and brightest in the area of maps and locational technologies, along with our very own library technologists from a group called the NYPL Labs. And the goal was to see what 2 days of intense, focused collaboration could produce. And in less than 24 total work hours, because we also spent time eating lunch, having snacks, and having lively debates, we were hoping to generate innovative new computational techniques for processing old maps and other geographic sources, and to pull together some exciting new prototypes of apps that mobilize historical geodata in engaging and educational ways. 2 projects in particular emerged from these 2 days. There were actually many, many more, but these 2 have really taken off. The first is called the map vectorizer. And the map vectorizer is designed to scale the process of transforming the warped maps from the previous project into geodata that ultimately feeds new geographic data into that historical gazetteer. And then the building inspector is the other project, which also emerged from the hackathon. And together, these 2 are designed to employ computer vision along with then crowdsourcing, or engaging our broad user base, and the involvement of peer communities. And what this does is it actually scales that capacity of these maps to begin their lifetime of digital transformation and broad use. So the computer vision tool, which is called the map vectorizer, and you can see aspects of that here, is actually impressively accurate and produces data at a radically accelerated pace compared to the previous map warper product, which was cumbersome and previously employed manual tracing methods by users. The public-facing tool, oh, and here again you can see the map vectorizer at work based on the work of the map warper, which lays historical maps on top of the Google Map points. Building Inspector is the public-facing tool, and its tagline is "Kill Time, Make History." And this particular tool, which has the website that you see up above at the top there, lets volunteers validate the computer's automated work. So here you see a particular task. The red dots show the outline of the building as determined by the computer. This is a computer visioning technique. And what users are asked to do is to either verify that this is correct, that it got all of the outline of the building, or to fix it. And users can actually fix it by clicking and dragging the red dots to make sure that all of the corners of the building are matched. Here you see that task up close. When you're ready to fix the footprint of a building, you can drag the corners. So this one actually does need correcting. So a user can very easily do that and then save their work and go on to the next. And like I said before, this actually provides multiple opportunities for the same map to be corrected by many individuals, and therefore we take the best, the most matches out of those. So there's a validation process. In only 5 weeks after launching this product on our website, there were about 425,000 completed user tasks across an 1850s layer of Manhattan and Brooklyn maps. So it's really quite amazing how much people were willing to do these bite-sized tasks. And I think the main reason that it worked, because there were many types of these bite-sized tasks that are easy. They're very self-explanatory. It doesn't take much instruction in order to do it. We also permit anonymous contributions. We don't ask users to sign up first, which is an immediate barrier to coming to a website when you have to create a user account. And the incentives for participating and contributing reside in the materials themselves. They're actually very interesting old maps. And a lot of people who are interested in old maps are interested in helping out the library. The proposition of working in partnership with a public trust like the library is also, I think, an incentive as well. And of course, we built in validation criteria that require agreement from a number of contributors to ensure that the maps are actually annotated with the correct metadata, because we do want the information to be as accurate as possible. And the advancement of these kinds of new tools, the methodologies, and the research agendas for working with historical content has encouraged my library, along with many other libraries, to continue to bring together librarians, library technologists, and software developers from public and private sectors to help advance technologies that are better coordinated and integrated and implemented in a collaborative fashion. And you can see these are several hackathons that were held at the library. It's really fun to go into the rooms while the technologists are working, mostly with their heads down facing their laptops amidst a glorious historical setting of the library. The New York Public Library is now building the world's first citywide directory and geo-search of historical places. And this is called the New York City Space-Time Directory. And you can see here on the lower left-hand corner of your screen the actual aerial photography of the island of Manhattan. And then up toward the upper right, we have blended into the warped maps that our users have placed on top of New York City's geography. It's really, really fun. This directory is going to be a community editable platform that's designed to facilitate digital wanderings through New York City across time periods. And it will enable historians, journalists, genealogists, librarians, students, and app developers to link data and collections in spatial and historical context down to the neighborhood, the block, or even the building. And all of this will be searchable in a Google Maps-like interface. Because New York City's history and growth patterns are so relevant to the study of urban history, the directory will also be a boon to scholars, economists, and urban planners worldwide. All the code and the data will be 100% library and community grown and open source. It will provide valuable conceptual models and technical frameworks that can be easily adopted by other cities, each with their own analogous reservoirs of historical maps and materials. And to achieve this particular challenge and opportunity, the library received a grant from the Knight Foundation in order to hire a technologist to help us build and coordinate this space-time directory. But what we will be doing, in addition to hiring some staff, is employing a deeply collaborative approach. And this is really going to contribute to the success of this based on our prior experiences and working with our maps. So the small technical and product team at the library is actually going to coordinate a much larger network of collaborators and contributors. And that's going to include institutions, technologists from New York City and beyond, and citizen cartographers and historians. We are going to work closely with libraries, archives, and museums in New York City, as well as universities and historical societies, to aggregate historical information and geocoded documents so that they too can be discoverable through this New York City Space-Time Directory. And through the kinds of hackathons that we've held in the past, as well as through deep dives of the data, we are going to enlist the efforts of public interest developers. These are technologists with a little time on their hands who really love working with the library, love being invited to come and help us to solve problems. And they will help us to build parts of the directory platform alongside the core technological team at the library. And they not only bring their technical skills, but they really truly bring a lot of great ideas about how this data can be used, and that's such a valuable contribution. Through the common framework of the directory, we are also going to unify disparate community history efforts, and there are many in New York City, and the individual historians and enthusiasts who are involved in those community history efforts. So we hope to develop a moderated community authoring process that actually allows citizens to edit within the space-time directory and create place entries. And through crowdsourcing projects similar to the ones we've done before, we will rally volunteers to assist with the millions of data migration and editing tasks, probably done again in bite-sized pieces, that will help stitch the past together. So on the grand scale, what we're hoping to create is a new way for people to engage with the history of the places that they inhabit. This will require the knitting together of otherwise disunited historical resources, merging and juxtaposing neighborhood histories across time and space based on common street addresses or the names of even forgotten places. And on an individual scale, we hope that the directory helps to tie people's live experiences of place together with rich documentation of the history and geography of the urban environment. As it grows over time, this resource should ultimately enable macro-level analysis of the changing cityscape. So in a play on the word collaboration, I'm calling the library a co-laboratory, which is engaged deeply in community building and innovation that comes from the community itself. And what our library has learned is that it's better to build it with your users in mind, but not only with them in mind, but actually letting them have a hand in building it with you. We bring people in, we give them access to the data, and make the code as open as we possibly can. We give them resources, time, and space to help us solve problems, and we give them lunch. That helps too. And what we found from our users is that they really trust the library as a smart partner for collaboration. It exposes them to some of the technology that is now in-house at the library, and these people are increasingly engaged in that technological community within New York City and seen as bringing their own kind of expertise. Our users want to give something back to a public good like the library, and this is a way for technologists and citizen humanists to do that. And users are willing to experiment and learn along with us, and I think that that's a really exciting aspect of this too. The library has multiple digital collaborations with its users, not only for maps, which is the very rich example I used today, but also for theater and dance. We're doing a lot of experimentation in the performing arts area. And we have emerging collaborations for Black studies, studies of the African diaspora. And we have also hosted hackathons for solving problems with ebook interfaces and for civic data and the coordination of that as well. So the library is a digital collaboratory, and digitization is really only the very beginning. And I thank you again for having me this morning, and I would be very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Може да помислим за нашите колекции от карти, които съществуват неекспонирани в хранилищата, за съжаление, и ги пазим, именно защото са уникални.
How do you promote, how do you find the volunteers for those hackathons?
Thank you for that good question. So Our NYPL Labs group is very active in a number of technological associations in New York City, and with a group of technologists who are in a lot of startups on what's called Silicon Alley in New York City. And they tweet about these opportunities. They put them out on social media and publicize it that way. So that's really social media and the kinds of networks and followers that our technologists have helped to get people there. We've also hosted a number of these hackathons over the last 2 years, and each time there is increased interest in coming to the library, and so word of mouth helps as well. Thank you for that good question.